Hi everybody and welcome to the webinar entitled Introducing ICEfaces 3 Next Gen JSF Ajax Development. Just a few items to get started with here, a few introductions. My name is Philip Bro. I'm a senior developer at IceSoft working on ICEfaces and ICE Mobile. A few logistical items here. The phones are muted for all attendees to reduce in order to reduce background noises. We do, however, would still love to get your questions, so please use the question and answer panel in the GoToMeeting console, and we will get to everybody's questions at the end of the webinar. For social channels, you can get a hold of us or reach out to us on Twitter with the hashtag ICEfaces or @ICEfaces. We have a YouTube channel, ICEF Tag, that has a growing number of interesting technical videos for you to look at. And you can also check out our Facebook page, and we also have a LinkedIn group as well that posts quite a few ICEfaces related jobs. So let's get started here. What is ICEfaces? Well, it's a JSF framework that allows you to easily create and deploy enterprise-rich applications in pure Java. It's open source, freely open source under the Apache 2 license. Previously it was under the Mozilla public license, which was fairly similar. And ICEfaces is based on the standards of Java EE and purely JSF extensions. That means we don't use any proprietary extensions. There's no necessary plugins, and everything's fully open source based on standards. Now with ICEfaces, the crux is that you can rapidly develop rich, very, very rich web apps in pure Java. You don't need to resort to any JavaScript if you don't want to. You can leverage your existing Java ecosystem. That means you can use your existing Java IDE, your existing Java skill set, use your existing Java application server, and so on. Now, when you put these together, we believe that ICEfaces is really the easiest choice for enterprise-rich web application development. So ICEfaces has been around for a while now. ICEfaces 1.0 was released in 2006, and we've had over 7 and 8 years of development. And in that time, we have established several terms and coined several phrases in the rich web app space, such as Automatic Ajax and Ajax Push, which we pioneered. And over the last 8 years, ICEfaces has really become a mature and established Ajax solution for Java EE. A lot of other competitors have come and gone, but ICEfaces has stuck around and continues to improve. Now, how's it doing? Well, we've garnered quite a large worldwide adoption. You'll see some very familiar names there. We're, all being used in enterprises all around the world in every possible sector, and they're still deploying ICEfaces 1.8 applications as well as ICEfaces 3 applications. So let's get started here. Well, this is an introduction to ICEfaces 3. Well, ICEfaces 3 is based on JSF 2. That's Java Server Faces 2, which is the standard web application framework for Java EE. Now, some of you may have or may have not used JSF 2 yet, and some of you may have used JSF 1.2 or earlier and might be interested in some of the new differences and some of the new updates and improvements in JSF 2. So first, we're going to take a look at a few of these. Now, the biggest thing with JSF 2, the biggest new thing is that Ajax is built into the core architecture now. This wasn't the case with JSF 1.2. Previous to JSF 2, frameworks such as ICEfaces and others had to work Ajax into the library because JSF predated the Ajax revolution. But when they came up with JSF 2.0, they were able to rewrite the standard and rewrite the specification and update it. And one of the nice things, very nice things, is that they built Ajax into the core architecture, built an API around it that other frameworks like ICEfaces could still use and build on to be more interoperable. Facelets, which previously was a de facto standard, has now become a real true live standard in the specification. And Facelets, if you haven't heard of it before, is basically a page development language. It's an XML language that allows you to do your page markup, and it allows you to do inserts and some basic templating. Well, now this has been brought into the standard, and it's the recommended approach to page development in JSF2. And JSP is no longer supported by ICEfaces in JSF2. JSF2 has much broader support for system events as well as component level events. So everything from pre-post validation on the component level, everything from page load, and any possible other system events are available. So these let you do much more easily let you do event-driven programming, which was quite limited in JSF 1.2, basically limited to phase listeners. There are new bean scopes and support for custom scopes, and JSF 1.2 only had the basic servlet scopes. You had request, session, and application scope. And as we all know, most use cases fall somewhere between request and session. And now in JSF 2, there's a new scope called view scope, which allows you to tie a bean scope to the lifetime of the JSF component tree for that particular page. There are also support for custom scopes, which ICEfaces and others use. And ICEfaces has a new custom scope called window scope, which allows you to easily do things like wizards and even keep a scope alive from a cross-navigation event. JSF2 also has flash scope, which allows you to keep a bean alive across a page redirect in a navigation event. And for those of you who love annotations, like I do, JSF2 fully supports those, and you can almost annotate almost anything now. There's only a few things that you can't annotate. So everything from bean definitions to converters and validators, and those are all annotatable. So it makes it much easier to design and develop a JSF web application with those annotations. And there's a lot of other new developments in JSF2. So if you haven't yet tried JSF2 or aren't familiar with it, I strongly invite you to learn more about it. It's a very good step in the JSF standard. So this brings us now to ICEfaces 3. So what are some of the new features in ICEfaces 3? Well, the main goal of ICEfaces is to extend and simplify JSF development. ICEfaces is a JSF extension, so that means that we sit on top of JSF. We're not our own isolated framework. You need to run JSF to run ICEfaces. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we also want to simplify JSF development and bring in a lot of extra neat features to make your life easier as a developer. Now, the main features we bring are something called Automatic Ajax and direct-to-DOM rendering, which are concepts that we pioneered in the field. We also support Ajax Push, which is the ability for the server to update the client or a group of clients on demand without the client needing to initiate a request or an update. And this Ajax Push makes developing collaborative web applications extremely simple. We also support portlet development with a custom bridge called the Portlet Faces bridge. Now, some of you that haven't done portlet development might not know that you do need a bridge because you have a portlet lifecycle, which is different from the JSF lifecycle. So you need a bridge to connect those together. And we've designed our own bridge. It works with Liferay and several other portlet vendors, such as WebSphere. And most importantly, we have a wide variety, a rich gamut of components for you to choose from. We now have over four component libraries and over 150 rich components to choose from. And this makes developing your web applications much more fun because you have much more choice in components to choose from. So we also have, for those of you migrating from ICEfaces 1.8 up, we've also tried very hard to make this job as easy as possible. And what we've done is created a 1.8 compatibility layer, which can run in an ICEfaces 3, a 2 or 3 environment, and essentially allows you to take your ICEfaces 1.8 application, simply change the jars, make a couple other minor configuration changes, and run your application as is on ICEfaces 3 and JSF 2. We have a new scope called Window Scope, which allows you to bind the lifecycle of a bean to the actual browser window. And you can have multiple browser windows open and different beans scoped to each of those windows. And the scope will last throughout a page redirect and page navigation. We also support enterprise clustering and failover on several different enterprise configurations, from WebSphere to WebLogic and others. So let's now talk about how Ajax works in JSF2. Ajax in JSF2 centers around a simple little tag called f::Ajax. This is how you bring Ajax into your page in the standard way in JSF2. So this tag isn't a visual component by itself. It doesn't render anything specifically like a button or an input field. What it does is add client-side behavior to whatever you nested in. Whatever you put this f::Ajax tag inside, f::Ajax will give that component, if it supports it, Ajax behavior. So what it does is it enables Ajax form submission. So without this f::Ajax tag, for instance, a button might submit the entire page and do a full page refresh. With the f::Ajax tag, the form can still be submitted, but it can be submitted through Ajax, and you can receive a partial update for the response instead of a full page refresh. It also allows you to change and alter the JSF lifecycle. It allows you to control which components are executed and validated and so on the server. And it also allows you to control what regions of the page, what components are supposed to be updated from the response. So it's quite a powerful little tag here. It allows you to really control the whole life cycle. So let's look at a little example here. So here we have an h::form, our basic JSF form, and we have a grid here. And then I have an input text, little input field, and inside the input text I have f::Ajax. Then I have an output text that is going to render some value. Now, in the f::Ajax tag, you can see that I've specified I'm using three attributes here: execute, event, and render. Now, all of these attributes are optional, and if you don't specify an attribute, a default will typically be used, which depends on whatever you nested in. Now, for the execute, I'm specifying @this, which means when this event is triggered and an Ajax event gets sent to the server, when you get to the server, I only want you to execute this one component, this input text component. I don't want you to validate or update any other components. But you also have to decide when this event actually occurs on the client. And for that, we use the event attribute. And for this particular event, we're specifying blur, which means when the user comes into the input field and tab out, this Ajax event is going to fire. You can also use other events, but the component that you're nesting the f::Ajax tag in has to actually support that particular event. And then you're also specifying what is actually going to be rendered when the response comes back. Now this, by specifying render equals my output, which corresponds to the ID of this output text, we're saying when you come back, I don't want you to render and update anything but this single output text. So you have very fine-grained control over what gets executed, how the event is triggered, and what is updated from the response. So this is the standard JSF mechanism for JSF2. Now let's take a look at how this works with a diagram. So over here on the right we have the browser client, and over here we have the server. Now the user opens up the browser and sees the input text and types in some new input, tabs out. As soon as they tab out, an Ajax event is going to fire, and the JSF bridge is going to send that Ajax request to the server, which then is going to fire off the JSF lifecycle. We're going to execute that one single component, and then we're going to render that one output text, and then we're going to send the page update back. And when that page update is sent back, it'll be intercepted and picked up by the JSF bridge, which then will interpret the XML response and reconstruct the page with the necessary updates. So this is going to be an Ajax request and response. You won't see any, the user won't see any full page refresh. It'll be smooth and Ajaxy. So this is the standard Ajax behavior. So this is great. They designed it very, very well. They designed it to a very low level, and they gave us everything we need. But there's something that you should be aware of as a JSF developer. So this is a good API for Ajax development. But when you're developing enterprise Ajax applications, dealing at this low level of Ajax can be quite problematic. And it's simple for trivial little examples like this, but what happens when your application becomes very complex and you have hundreds of components on the page? Because in this Ajax world we live in now, people are used to pages having a lot of behavior and a lot of different components. So as you add components and complexity to the page, all of your interactions and Ajax interactions become much more complex. So what often happens when you're dealing with at a low level in Ajax, it's hard to keep track of exactly what's supposed to be updated at any particular time, and you can wind up with what I call JSF Tag spaghetti, because your pages become too complex to maintain. Now this is where the idea of ICEfaces Automatic Ajax comes in. The idea here is to try to make your life easier and to try to simplify the Ajax lifecycle of the page. So we have a mechanism in ICEfaces called direct-to-DOM rendering. And direct-to-DOM rendering guarantees minimal page updates, which means that we calculate the updates for you. You as the developer don't have to worry about what's supposed to be updated. You don't have to worry about what's supposed to be executed. We'll do that all for you. So here's the same example, our simple little form example. We have a form and a grid, an input text, and an output text. We are offering the user the same behavior. The direct-to-DOM approach with ICEfaces is fully compatible with the standard Ajax mechanism, but just by adding ICEfaces, ICEfaces will intercept all rendered responses on the server and calculate what is supposed to actually be updated on the client, and only send back the smallest minimal page updates to the client. That means you as a developer can simply sit back and say, I don't know what's supposed to be updated, just render, update whatever is supposed to be updated. And ICEfaces will calculate that for you. So this saves you a lot of time because you no longer have to worry about what exactly is supposed to be rendered. So let's look at an example here, the same one. User comes into the field, types in some new input. They tab out, an Ajax event occurs, and an Ajax request is sent to the server. And JSF lifecycle then is initiated, and the page is rendered. At this point, ICEfaces direct-to-DOM rendering intercepts the lifecycle here and captures the rendering and actually stores it as a W3C DOM data structure on the server. Now, because we store the DOM on the server, that means we know what has changed from one page interaction to the next. And that means we have before and after snapshots of the page actually on the server. So we can compare these and do data diffs on them and actually send back only the necessary changes to the server. And this is what we call direct-to-DOM and automatic Ajax. By simply adding the ICEfaces libraries and jars to your project, to your JSF application, you get this behavior automatically. And then the update will be sent back to the client, and the page browser will be updated automatically for you. So on trivial cases, this isn't going to make much difference at all. But on very complex pages, this can save you a lot of time and also a lot of hassle and headache with not updating the proper thing, or forgetting to update something, or updating the wrong thing. This, as a developer, this lets you just sit back and simply worry about the business logic and not worry about the low-level Ajax mechanics on the page. The result is that it's much simpler to write ICEfaces applications. Okay, now on to the component landscape with ICEfaces. So I mentioned we have over 150 components and 4 different component suites to choose from now. This is quite a lot. We have the older ICE component suite, which is brought up onto the compatibility layer for ICEfaces 2 and 3. We also have a brand new library called the ACE components. Now, ACE is short for Advanced Component Environment. These are components that are built from the ground up to leverage JSF 2 features, whereas the ICE components, while still heavily developed, are based on legacy on a legacy API. We also have the EE components. Now, EE components come in the EE Composite library, as well as a new library called the EE Accessible library, which allows you to develop web applications that can be designed and targeted to visually impaired users. Now, the ICEfaces Advanced component built, as I mentioned, on a completely new platform called the ACE platform. They're fully skinnable. We support Theme Roller, which is a jQuery project that allows you to easily create themes and deploy themes. We have full Theme Roller styling support and over 25 predefined themes that come with ICEfaces. So it's fun to simply swap skins in and out and see what your app looks like with different skins. It makes it a lot easier to do the design of your application that way. Now, ICEfaces 2 came out with the first batch of ACE components, and there was a small batch here. We were just getting started with the new platform. ICEfaces 3 brought in a much larger selection of components, very interesting components like the accordion and dialogues and things like that. ICEfaces 3, released last year, has updated it further, and ICEfaces 3.2, which is just released, has updated it with even more interesting components, such as a new Google Maps component, multiple file upload, submit monitor tree component, and a new delegate component. So the ACE library has now grown into a very full-fledged library in its own right. Now I'd like to speak a little bit about Ajax Push. Now, Ajax Push is based in ICEfaces on a library that we call ICEpush. And it allows you to incrementally update any part of the page at any time for any group of clients from the server. That means when some interesting thing happens on the server, for instance, there might be a stock price change or something might have bid on an auction item, you can update a single client or a group of clients on demand without having to wait for them to request an update. Now, when you're building collaborative applications, whether it be a chat application or whether it be any application where a user needs to be notified of some interesting event, this is really a key to your architecture. If you don't have something like Ajax Push, and Ajax Push is fairly unique here in the Java EE space, writing collaborative multi-user applications is extremely complex and error-prone. So I'd like to show you how easy it is to use Ajax Push and how much time it can save you. Now, as I mentioned, it's based on a library. We've separated out from ICEfaces now called ICEpush. The nice thing about this is that you can use ICEpush now separately from ICEfaces in a JSP or any other servlet-based web application. And the API is dead simple, very, very simple. on the server, if you want to add a single user to a particular group, you can simply call push render.addCurrentView to whatever the group name is. The group doesn't have to be created. This can be the first time somebody's being added to the group. We worry about all the necessary mechanics underneath all this. Now you can add a single view, a single page, or you can add an entire session by calling push render.addCurrentSession to the same group. Now this adds a user to a group and allows them to be notified when a push event happens. So how do you make that push event happen? Well, you simply call push render.render to the group name. Now you can see these are all static calls. There's no necessary state that you have to set up. There's no necessary configuration. You simply add the ICEpush jar to your ICEfaces project and use the API like this, and everything else is automatic, which is very, very nice. Ajax Push also supports clustering and failover, so you can even do push events across nodes in a cluster. It's a very, very sophisticated implementation on the back end. Okay, now for interoperability. You might be wondering, well, I have this particular stack of Java EE technologies. I have an application server and middleware. I might need clustering and failover or portal integration. I have all of my developers using a particular IDE. We have a very, very wide range of support across all these particular things. So we have different plugins for Eclipse, NetBeans, RAD and RSA, and MyEclipse. We have portal integration, a wide range of browser integration. We support all the major browsers, even all the way back to IE6. Application servers, pretty well, almost every major application server is there. We support a lot of different Java EE middleware, and clustering and failover is very important for us. So if you have some particular Java EE stack and you want to make sure that ICEfaces is okay with all this, you can head over to www.icesoft.org, and all of these interoperability matrices are there for you to check out, or you can just give us a call and we'd be happy to check it out for you. You'll also notice that we support a lot of mobile browsers as well. And we support iOS Safari, Opera Mobile, and BlackBerry Bold. This is driven out of our new ICE Mobile endeavor, which is a new mobile framework that has become an offshoot of ICEfaces that also works in a JSP environment as well. So what are the new features in ICEfaces 3? Well, there's new ACE components. Well, our flagship component is the new ACE data table. Now, this is really a workhorse component that really does everything imaginable, from optimized lazy loading, unlimited scalability, built-in pagination, scrolling and row selection, multi-column sorting and data filtering. All of this is automatic, which is really nice. You don't have to write a single line of Java to do any of this. Expandable rows and regions, column reordering and drag and drop, a find API, and the list goes on and on. It's really a gigantic component with a lot of amazing features. If you'd like to check out this component, just head on over to www.icefaces.org, and under Downloads and Demos, you can check out the ICEfaces Showcase demo. And then you'll see a showcase of all of our ICE and ACE components, and you can click on a particular item in the menu section here and see a lot of very interesting features of the data table, such as automatic filtering and sorting, such as column reordering. A lot of amazing things the data table does. So if you have any data table requirements, and I know a lot of you do, feel free to check this out. Now we also have MyFaces 2.1 support, which is very important for those of you who are still running on legacy Java EE 5 application servers, which may not be compatible with Oracle Mohara JSF runtime. So that was a big milestone for us to support in ICEfaces 3. So now we're going to go on to the demonstration section of the webinar. This is entitled Getting Started with ICEfaces 3. So I'm going to use the Eclipse IDE integration. As I mentioned, we have an Eclipse plugin, as well as a NetBeans and RAD RSA plugins as well as my Eclipse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to get up and running very, very easily with ICEfaces 3. So I'm going to switch over now to my Eclipse workbench here. Now, to get the ICEfaces plugin, you can simply, again, head over to www.icesoft.org, and under Downloads, you can hit the ICEfaces Downloads, and then you'll see the main ICEfaces bundle, but you'll also see tool support under there as well. So it's very easy, typical install for the plugin. It installs very, very easily. Now, once you install it, it becomes very, very simple to create a web app, ICEfaces application. ICEfaces support is based on the WTP environment, which is called the Web Tools project in Eclipse, and it allows you to create dynamic web projects. So the first thing you can do is to create a new dynamic web project. I'm just going to call this test. Now, where the ICEfaces comes in is under the configuration section. Now, once you install the ICEfaces plugin, you'll see it available there under the configuration section in the first WTP dialog. You'll also see that I have ICE Mobile there as well. We have our ICE Mobile framework has a plugin as well. So I'm going to specify ICEfaces 3. Leave the defaults for the root and directory. Now you can also choose which particular JSF implementation you are using. If you don't have a JSF implementation, you can download one just by hitting this download library button. The rest of this is your typical JSF configuration, where you configure the Faces servlet to a particular URL. Now, the ICEfaces plugin has a variety of templates for you to choose from. You can choose a blank ICEfaces template, but you can also choose other interesting templates that provide you more of a fully featured, ready-to-go web application with ICEfaces. Now, at this point, you can also choose which other ICEfaces libraries you'd like to use. You can choose whether you'd also like to use ICE Mobile if you have that plugin installed too. You can choose whether you want to use the ICE component or the ACE component, and as well as whether you want to use push or not. You only need to deploy what you really need, which is nice. I'm going to choose the blank project and all the libraries here. Now, as soon as you start this, you'll see that we've created a sample page, index.html. Now, when you open this, you'll see basic boilerplate code, the basic HTML tag, along with the necessary namespaces there, the JSF head and body, and then just a few other simple components to get you started. Now, just trying to run that now, I can just hit run. I'm going to deploy it to Glassfish, which I already have running there. It'll just take a second to publish. Now, you can also see that we have WYSIWYG support. Now, when you open your page with the web page editor, you'll see that there is a web page WYSIWYG palette, a WYSIWYG section rather, and there's also a palette. Now, in the palette, you'll see all the ICEfaces components. So you can just drag and drop these components onto the page, which is very, very nice, very easy to work with. Once you've got, and you can also work in the page just through the source with the built-in autocomplete support. So as soon as I start typing in a tag, you can see that all of the options for the different tags come up. Now you get tag support as well as attribute support, and you can also even see into the EL attribute and see which beans you have, which is very, very useful and saves a lot on typing. Now I hit run there, and just running a basic ICEfaces app, you can see that a basic page has come up very, very easily. There's not a lot here for the page, but we've done all the necessary configuration for you. We've done the necessary configuration in the web.xml. We've brought in the necessary libraries and done all the necessary work for you, so you can get up and running very, very quickly. Now I've created a simple project here called ICEcities. What I've done is I've created an ICEfaces project, and I'm showing an ACE data table, and I'm binding this data table to a backing bean I have called viewBean, and that backing bean has a property called cities, and I'm populating this property with entries from a database, which is the MySQL World database, which is a sample MySQL database. Now I'll show you this bean. If you're not familiar with, or you haven't seen JSF2 beans before, being able to use annotations is great, because just saying @managedBean @viewScoped allows me to automatically create this bean and use it. I don't even have to name it. The name will be taken from the class if you like. Because I'm running this on Glassfish 3, I can use the EJB3 persistence context, which allows me to very easily bind to a data source and use JPA, which is the Java Persistence API. So here I'm simply binding to a list of cities, and all I'm doing is grabbing the list of cities through JPA and simply select C from city C, which grabs a result of the cities. If you haven't used JPA and EJB3 before, it's great. It really saves a lot of time, and it's a huge productivity boost for you. So you can see in a very short amount of time here, I've created a very simple manager class, but it allows me to go to a database, extract all of the data from a particular table. I've auto-generated the necessary POJO called city class, and this was done automatically through the Eclipse tools, so it didn't take me any time to do it all. You simply point Eclipse to a particular table, and it'll automatically create the necessary class for you. Now when I run this, I'm getting my list of cities here. Now this is using the ACE data table, and I'm specifying that only the first column should be filterable. Now all I needed to do to get this filter working was use an ACE column and set the filter by to a particular bean property. As soon as I do that, I then get this filter appearing, and I can simply type, and the data table is automatically updated as I type. Now I've added a column for city name, population. You can see this is paginated. So how did I get the pagination working? Well, that was really dead simple as well. I simply set paginator equals true on the data table, and the component has done everything automatically for me. I've also added a Google Maps component to right beside the data table. So inside a div here, I have an ICEGmap component, and I'm simply binding that to an address. Very, very simple. Now, when I click on a particular item here, I'm setting a bean level property for the current selected city, which can then be picked up by the map. So I clicked on Amsterdam there, and as soon as I did that, the map popped up for me. Now you can see here that this is a very, very simple application. There's just a few lines of XML here in my page, just a few lines in my bean, but it's already a fairly sophisticated interactive application. this is the power of ICEfaces with very complex and sophisticated components, and also the power of JSF2, which has provided us with a great enterprise-friendly framework to create enterprise apps very productively. So, excuse me while I go back to our presentation. So that was it for the demonstration section of the webinar. We have a few minutes left for the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the GoToMeeting console. Excuse me one moment while I grab some questions. Feel free to ask anything you'd like, anything about your own development, or any questions about anything else you might have about JSF development or ICEfaces development. Okay, one of our attendees is asking when the next ICEfaces release 3.3 is going to be. It's going to be very soon. I believe we're just wrapping up a few things, so it should be released in the next month or so. And this 3.3 release has quite a few new features, and new components and improvements to the data table. So keep an eye out on that. And one of our attendees is also asking whether it's possible to deploy an app into a mobile environment, and whether or not that will require a different code base. You can have a user deploy an ICEfaces application and have a user point to that web application on their device, and most mobile browsers are perfectly capable of rendering the components, but they're not optimized for the mobile environment. So one of the things we've done is created a new project, a new framework called ICEmobile. And ICEmobile has been created from the ground up to be optimized for the mobile environment. So it optimized things such as bandwidth, and does things like adaptive UIs for different screen sizes, and so on. So here, if you'd like to learn more about ICEmobile, you can go to www.icesoft.org, and you'll see ICEmobile under the projects section. ICEmobile is designed to work with ICEfaces or as a JSP application, which is very nice. So if you have an existing ICEfaces application, you can deploy a mobile version of that application within the same application, within the same code base. And you might have separate pages for the mobile pages that use a phone view or a tablet view, and ICEmobile has components, layout components to help you do that. ICEmobile also has device-specific components to help you access interesting device features such as the camera and camcorder and scanner, etc. on your device. But you can deploy ICEmobile along with an ICEfaces application. So you might have an ICEfaces application, and it might have quite a few pages, and you can reuse that content in a mobile environment much more easily. ICEmobile is designed from the ground up to optimize bandwidth, to be mobile friendly, etc., and makes developing mobile applications much simpler. So if you're interested in mobile, please check that out. It's a really good framework, and as I mentioned, it works with ICEfaces and JSF, but you can also use it as a JSP library, and we also have Spring MVC support. Okay, another one of our attendees is asking about the learning curve with JSF, and that's an interesting question. JSF is a complex JSF is a complex framework. There's a lot to it. The specification is over 1,000 pages, but you don't have to read it all. You can get up and running with JSF fairly easy. Now, if you're going to dabble in Ajax, that's where a bigger learning curve comes in, and that's what will take you more time. Using something like ICEfaces can really simplify that. So, as I showed you with the IDE and Eclipse, it's very simple to get up and running. So I invite you to just try out a tutorial. Just download ICEfaces, download the bundle, mosey on over to our wiki, and if you go over to our wiki at wiki.icesoft.org, we have a lot of information on ICEfaces, and we have a lot of great tutorials. And a lot of these tutorials are geared to the absolute beginner, so don't need to worry about a lot of background knowledge. And there's a lot of interesting tutorials where you can create and use different components and create different applications from scratch. And these tutorials walk you step by step through creating the application. They're very, very user-friendly and very, very useful to get up and running. We also have a lot of videos on our YouTube channel. So if you're just getting started with JSF and ICEfaces, we have a lot of getting started with JSF on our YouTube channel. So you can check that out as well. Another interesting question we have here is, are filtered fields automatically validated to prevent SQL injections and that sort of thing? Yes, they are. Most of the SQL injection prevention, cross-site scripting attack prevention, cross-site request forgery prevention, most of that comes in JSF, and that's one of the benefits of using JSF is you get a more secure framework than using many other frameworks. Because it's battle hardened and really targeted to enterprise Java applications, they worry a lot about covering those security holes. Everything in JSF by default is automatically escaped, which makes cross-site scripting attacks impossible. We also spend a lot of time covering our security bases with ICEfaces and any new components that we do. They're run through security checks, and because a lot of high-ranking companies and Fortune 500 companies are using ICEfaces, they really demand this. And so when something creeps up, when some security hole creeps up, trust me, we hear about it from a lot of our customers. So these security holes are patched immediately. But generally in JSF, especially with JSF2, you're covered very, very well, much more than you're covered with a lot of other frameworks. Okay, that about does it for our question and answer period. If we didn't get to your question, I promise everybody we'll get to everybody after the webinar. I mentioned again, you can get a hold of us on Twitter, give us a shout, tell us how you like the webinar. You can also look at the YouTube channel with lots of interesting videos. Facebook and LinkedIn are also there too. Now, if you're looking at next steps, I invite you to check out icesoft.org. We have a huge forum section with over 150,000 threads, I think. We have support options for you for all price ranges, starting from the very affordable to the fully covered enterprise subscriptions. And we have services work available for you as well. If you are interested in having an iSoft engineer help you get up and running with your own application, or develop some custom components or some custom features on existing components, we're always available to do that as well. And we also provide training. We provide on-site as well as online training, and we travel all over the world to do training classes. So please drop us a line if you're interested in that. And I mentioned the wikis, tutorials, and documentation, which there's just a load of there on www.icesoft.org. So check that out as well. So thanks a lot for attending the webinar, and please keep an eye out for other upcoming webinars on ICE Mobile as well as Ajax Push. So thanks everybody, and have a good day. Bye-bye.